Hi everybody, this is Nate. Welcome to my channel, and I want to welcome Ness again for our astrology overview into November. I cannot believe that October was just
A month
4 weeks
ago.
ago. I mean, it's just going so fast, and at this time of the year, it's just going even faster. I feel.
Yes. Yes, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, it'll be like that. This time will collapse.
Yes.
So interesting. You're in Europe right now. Are they already putting up holiday decorations and trees or lights or stuff? Because I know in Europe you all deck out very much for
It
Christmas.
goes early, but what we've done a little bit earlier this year, which it's been a week now, we started to the daylight savings time, so it's very dark now in the morning, and it's dark. Uh, like yeah, right now, like it's close to 5:30, 6 p.m., and it's getting dark.
Okay.
Um, but I know, like in the US, it's this upcoming weekend, so we
Yes. Yes,
have
folks.
less of a
It's
difference. Yeah.
Yes, we have our daylight savings time this Sunday, and this is the one that I don't like. I
Now,
have to wake up earlier. I think basically time is stolen from us, like an hour, and so we have to sort of absorb it, so we can also adjust better to the shorter daylight as well in terms of the
It's
winter
it's
months.
more the shorter daylight. Like when you wake up in the morning, it's dark.
Yes.
5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, it's dark. It's not that exciting. Yes.
No. No, and I have to make more of an effort. I mean, I'm in California, but I'm very photosensitive, as a sensitive,
Mm-mm.
empathetic person.
Yep.
I'm very sensitive to daylight and I'm on sabbatical right now, but when I was working, I would time shift. I would work 6 to 2 so that I can spend more time in the daylight. Otherwise, I would just go to work and leave work and I would miss most of the daylight. So it's like
I remember those days. Yeah, you drive to work.
yeah,
It's
commute
from
and all
yeah,
those
yeah,
things.
yeah.
So, yes, folks, as we unpack November and December's energies today, both with my astrology and Nate's psychicness, woo-woo-ness, we keep in mind that the November will start with daylight savings. That will be
Yeah.
something to watch for. Yeah.
So, Ness, what have you been observing in kind of the current events or political area in the US? I've seen you mentioning to me previously that you had you observed some interesting dynamics.
Yeah, I think I feel like folks in the audience and just people in general are a lot more smarter than I think media gives us credit for. And I think, for example, I was talking about Trump with you earlier, and I one thing that I noticed yesterday is Trump is in Asia right now. He's making his Asia tour and visiting a bunch of countries. But there's an interview with him and a reporter, and he has Marco Rubio right behind him. And folks, I'll try to put a link in it in the bottom of this video. But I think if you just Google, Trump, Marco Rubio, you might find it. It's a very short interview clip. I want to say it's like 90 seconds. But in this compact plane, the reporters are on the plane with him and they're interviewing Trump. And this is a clip that he talks about. He took an MRI test and he got a perfect score and etc. But right behind him is Marco Rubio. And Marco Rubio has a very expressive face. I'll just say he has a tell for folks that are familiar with it. And I actually Googled it. I was like, what's Marco Rubio's sign? And he's a Cancer moon. So folks know that Cancer moons kind of wear their emotions on their sleeve. They tend to. Not it's not everyone, but so I don't think Marco Rubio would normally be positioned behind him because it was a plain type of thing. But every time a reporter asked Trump a question, Marco Rubio would give a tell in terms of what he thought. And so when Trump was asked about Trump offered his MRI scan results and he got a perfect score, Marco Rubio looked away. And there's this book that is being promoted this week by this man named Oz Perlman. Let me show you a wee bit of it. And so this is folks, you might start to see interviews on your local channels about this, but this guy is called a mentalist. So he's not a psychic, he's called a mentalist, but he can understand certain body cues that reflect your internal cognitive processes. So what he's really good about is asking questions or triggering you, like kind of provoking you, and then seeing how your body responds. And then from that, he's able to deduce what you're most likely thinking. And he just does this because he's really astute with body language. And so I was watching some of his interviews this past week as he's promoting this book, and then I watched Marco Rubio's reactions when he was interviewed yesterday, and he validated something that I've been sensing when it comes to interpreting the news is I also feel in my woo-ness that I feel Trump is dying. Like I laugh a bit because I don't know how to manage my emotions around that. But I feel Trump is passing away. He's dying. I think we talked about in the past show before or 2 months before when he had those bruises on his hand that he might most likely got some sort of terminal illness. And when the reporter yesterday asked Trump about, his health, or, Trump offered his MRI scans or public, perfect score on his MRI, and he's like amazing cognitive health and how he can beat, AOC and Jasmine Crockett and a cognitive test or something like that. Marco Rubio kept looking down and looking away, like he didn't want to reveal that he was what Trump was saying was lying or being dishonest. And so I feel Trump is actually passing, he's passing away, or he has a sense of like a bit of a terminal illness like the next few months. Like he's a bit aware of it. And I feel I feel the whole ballroom and this third term talk is a deflection tactic. So, like, look over here as opposed to looking at my health. If I say I'm going to be here for a third term, or I'm going to build this ballroom that's going to take, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years to build, you're not really thinking about me passing. I'm curious if you notice that sense of it in terms of these like deflection tactics or other things, Nath.
I felt like you always had deflection tactics. I think this is one of the strategy move. I've always felt like the health issues are getting worse and worse. Um, it's really hard to put a time on it. From my
Yeah.
perspective,
Yeah.
I just feel like it's accelerating, but
Yeah.
I I'm not able to put like a timestamp in terms of.
Timestamp, but it feels something. I mean, given his age, it's not that, but
But clearly issues with the heart issues. There was also talks about his hips having problems as well. Um, I mean, I've said that multiple times. Like I keep seeing him on a wheelchair. So
yeah.
a
And
surgeon in a wheelchair. And the hip aspect was interesting because that would really qualify as a wheelchair need,
yeah.
especially for the double hip. But there's also issues with the heart. There's also issues, and so I also find very interesting that now the bruises are no longer covered with makeup.
Yeah, they're showing them.
There, so
Yeah,
that says something.
yeah.
Um, the cognitive
Even
issue.
him even
There
him
was
talking about the MRI was just him just talk he volunteered that information. He didn't even,
yes.
yeah.
And then he was very disoriented again in Japan.
Yes.
Um, so
He started walking and randomly, I think the
yeah,
Japanese minister asked him to salute both flags, like the American and the Japanese flag, and
he,
then he just saluted for one for both and just started wandering. And one other thing too, I think his first stop was either Malaysia or Colum,
yes,
I can't remember, but this is where they greeted him at the airport with a bunch of dancers with music. And so when he
interpretive,
got off the
interpretive.
plane, he was super pepped and he was dancing. But one thing I noticed, because he was moving so vigorously, and I've seen a lot of his YMC dance moves, he was moving more there than at his own,
Yes,
rallies. And so I think they might have given him something just to pep him up because I watched The Crown, and they would actually give things to Queen Elizabeth when she was doing her tour, or even Princess Diana and King Charles when they were doing their tours to kind of pep them up a bit before we realized those are not really the best substances. And so I wonder if they gave him something to pep up because that's why he was dancing so rigorously. But one other thing was when he was dancing, he didn't move symmetrically. He moved one arm and then he moved this. And I don't know if he noticed that, if there was, or if it was like but that could indicate possibly just recovering from a stroke type thing when you move asymmetrically with your movements. So
Well, it's either part of his dance routine or the stroke issue. We let the viewers kind of weigh on that. Yeah.
weigh on that. Yes, please, folks. Yeah, feel look at that. He's creating a new dance move.
But clearly, yes, I've seen that, and I felt like the energy was off. I kept feeling like he was listening to YMCA in his head, where he was dancing
Oh.
to,
Oh, a
some of,
different beat. Like the music had a
yeah,
different
like
beat than
those
what he was dancing to.
interpretive dance,
Yeah.
So it was kind of off.
Yeah.
And actually, since you're on that topic, I know maybe probably more than we should talk about, but I've always noticed that on his dance moves is always off beat.
Yes.
And that goes even back then. It's true. If you look
Yeah.
at the duration, it doesn't seem to like be on tempo.
No, no,
No,
I
no.
don't think Trump is ever on tempo. Folks, feel free to leave your theories in the comments on why his dancing is off tempo, because I can imagine some humorous versions on why he can't dance on tempo. Um,
Um, so moving away from this,
yeah,
I think kind of the transition point, and that I think is very legitimate, is the sense of wanting to go fast. And I felt that there was this pressure of doing things fast, particularly when it comes to foreign affairs. I
yeah,
was under the impression that he was trying to do that to get the highest momentum for the Nobel Peace Prize. But the truth is, he's still going very, very fast. So
yeah,
there's an ulterior motive that's just not Nobel because that train
yeah,
has left the station a long time ago. So he's trying to wrap things up. And I think that's a different energy. That's not for Nobel. That's because usually when people do that, they feel like time is limited, clock is
yeah.
ticking, which
To
goes
wrap
back
it
to
up.
kind of your impressions. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about the a month ago with the Gaza peace deal.
Yes.
Whether it was not a peace deal, I mean, you called it. You said that when we talked about it last month. You're like, it's not really going to be a peace deal, and
But
but
to
yeah,
start with, yes, to start with, that was not a peace deal. That was a ceasefire, and that didn't even last as a
yeah,
ceasefire.
it didn't even last.
Yeah.
Yeah, the season last. I think yesterday they killed like 60 people, like like some missile type thing. They just killed 60 people in
Terrible.
one move or something. So it was quite horrific. But at that parade, the pomp and circumstance, I remember BB kind of just, putting, soliloquy and praise onto Trump, and I'm like, that's not sustainable. You can't do this for 4 years. This feels that wrap up energy, like they're just doing it a little bit because they know something is being wrapped up. And Israel uses a lot of psychics and stuff. Like
Yeah.
they have Yuri Geller as a psychic with them, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they have information that, even if Trump might not have shared with them. But yeah, even this Asia tour reminds me a lot of when Trump was with King Charles and that pomp and circumstance. They, had the parade and all this other things. And when I saw him get off the plane when he first arrived in Asia a day or two ago, I saw that same pomp and circumstance. And even Japan, yesterday, they had the whole military parade as well. And so it goes to what you're saying, that wrap up energy, that everyone's trying to quickly get their deal in before the guards change or something.
For what it's worth, when you were talking about this tour, what really came to me was this idea of farewell tour. When the artists go on tour, the singers go on tour and do a farewell tour. I got this energy like quite coming into my right side,
Oh
and
my gosh, I feel it
and I
too.
heard
I felt that. Go ahead.
farewell. Yeah, I just got farewell. So it could be an intentional farewell
Yeah,
tour, unconscious farewell tour, but it could be the last grand tour of the
yeah.
world. It could very well be.
It's
Um,
because everyone's acting odd. Like Patel is acting odd, Bondi's acting odd, and I think it's an interesting thing if folks know he's terminal or he's not here for that long. we could be in a situation we've never been before where they are beholden to him, but they're only beholden to him because they know there's an expiration date type of thing,
Mhm.
where we have not been in this situation before, where it's someone visibly more, deteriorating and we kind of, take them off stage. And that could be why we're in this, that why they let him demolish the East Wing, because they're like, oh, let him do this, but this is not 4 years of this. This is just 1 year of this type of thing.
Yeah, I mean the East Wing though is very disturbing, of course, and so
In
it,
2 days, they demolished the whole
yeah,
thing in 2 days.
yeah.
One
Um,
thing too about that though, I want to say the East Wing, and this has to do with my own lots of hours of watching true crime and understanding like darker personalities, is manipulative people are often very insecure. And so I think when it comes to the No Kings protests and Trump actually seeing the numbers, and I think it's actually quoted now that it's likely 20 million people that
oh
protested.
wow,
Yeah, not 7 to 8. They're saying that it was 7 to 8 people that officially registered. Like they went to the
registered.
website and they officially registered, but that's not really what boots on the grounds was. And there's actually ways of tracking it with like app data. Like you can
Hmm.
see where people were based on phone data. And so they're saying it was 20 million people. But going back to my own competency and literacy of manipulative people through true crime, is if Trump knows the election was stolen, and then he knows that the election was stolen, when he sees these numbers coming up, it kind of tugs at that insecurity
Mm,
of, like often manipulative people will do things to be manipulative, but then they'll know it's not freely given, that they had to manipulate it, and then they feel insecure about it. So it kind of creates this vicious cycle of being more manipulative to control and etc. And so I think that No King's protest hit more at that insecurity of they don't want me.
yep, yep, I agree.
Like I'm not loved type of thing. And that I think that was a big part of him acting out
Especially
for the East Wing.
especially for someone like him that has experienced abandonment in his life
Yeah.
early on. It's a big theme for him. And I'm not trying to, excuse him, but
Yeah,
he
no.
certainly had, traumatic events in his life that explain a little bit his personality.
Yeah, his
Yeah.
mom had a second child or the child after him, and then she had to stay in the hospital to deal with like I think a ruptured uterus or something like that. And so Trump was left alone and not cared for because everyone was putting resources into the mom and to the new child, and he was neglected. That's what a lot of the documentaries talk about, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's completely in search of attention and validation on a second by second basis. So
Yep.
that matches that. Um, Ness, did you want to kind of switch topic a little bit, or
Yeah, yeah, I
yeah,
think yeah, I think that yeah, that was yeah, I think the Asia I just want to let folks know that as much as you're hearing things about the third term or this ballroom, that sometimes people deflect over here and create a sense of, oh my gosh, we're going to have 4 years of Trump because they don't want you to look over here. So just be aware of that. And that's something I'm noticing with this Asia tour, this maybe a farewell tour that we're sort of seeing of have a bit more discernment in terms of what people are saying versus what they're doing. I think that that would help folks. And that helps me calm down a little bit because when I'm like, oh my gosh, a ballroom for 4 years, that also matches a lot of readers see. They don't actually see the ballroom being built for Trump. Like it's going to probably be repurposed. But yeah, let's get into the November and December astrology. And as I do that, maybe we'll do our infomercial back and forth. Do you want to say anything? I think you had some stuff coming up actually
yeah,
yourself
I'm
for
just
me.
going to be very quick. I am having this week a Halloween show that's open to absolutely everyone, where there will be prizes to win, surprises, lots and lots of excitement, and I will wear maybe one or two costumes. So that's going to be
Ooh,
interesting
you'll
just for
change
that.
outfits?
Yeah, people should just come just for that. And then
Oh my
for
goodness.
members, there's a show, kind of also a Halloween show, but on the Saturday,
Mm,
with joint show with Sherry Voices from the Swamp.
yep.
And so members are invited, and it will be on Zoom. So
Mm,
if they want to dress up, they can
yeah.
dress up as well. The only thing that I would mention, it's we're on the 30 days where I'm doing a Kickstarter on the Voices of the Whales Oracle. Um, and for those of you who haven't seen those cards, it has kind of a obviously a whale theme. You can see some
Beautiful.
of those here. And it's Oracle, so it's not Tarot. It's very easy. There's like a keyword. This one is called Reconnection. It's a
Mm,
perfect gift, and
mm,
it includes like a full size, close to 200 pages book that explain the meaning of the card, the revelation from the ocean, the
mm.
message, the guidance from the whale, and everything is detailed in this book. So link will be below, but that's like a nice Christmas gift to yourself or anyone you know that's very connected to the ocean, water sign for
Yeah.
our astrologer here, and wants to connect with something that's a little easier, but also very deep in terms of personal wisdom. So link
Yeah.
will be below. Yes.
Very cool. I also love the symbolism of just the ocean, like that spirituality kind of vastness that we sort of eventually melt into or always are part of, like we're one drop within the ocean, separate but also together at the same time. Very, very cool. I can't wait I think I've purchased actually I don't have an ability to go to Kickstarter, but I think I'm gonna probably just send you a donation. I have a Kickstarter issue with my account, but
Oh,
I
I'm happy to
love
ship
to
it
grab a
to you.
copy too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very cool. Let me go into a couple infomercials for myself. One thing that I have, folks, is I don't have a YouTube channel, but what I do have is a monthly newsletter. And I've actually had this newsletter for the past few months. And I've had this idea now for folks, they can add themselves. So, what you're going to see a couple times today, folks, is a QR code. And if you're watching me from a computer or a TV, you can just pull out your phone and you can go to the camera feature and then you can just use it to scan it, and then it will take you to the website. So this little QR code will add you, if you want to, be added to my email newsletter, which is the closest thing to a YouTube channel that I have. And I send monthly newsletters. And one thing that I will also include that someone in the YouTube community, Blaine, he had this idea, is I'm actually going to include this entire deck. So this whole presentation, you
Mhm.
will now have access if you're on my newsletter. So you can look at November yourself and look at these particular dates or December and start to plan for yourself. Because I'm only going to talk about the most important ones, but you can use the other dates to kind of plan when you're on my newsletter. So that's something folks can do. I also have my manifestation class coming up on 11/11. It's the 11/11 portal. I will teach this twice in one day. And this class is very simple, similar to me, where I come from a very academic science background and I'm sort of folding in more woo-woo-ness. So I use a lot of books on the right-hand side to reference, in particular James Doughty, as well as Tara Stewart. These are kind of neuroscientists that have embraced more manifestations. So that's my style of both being pragmatic, but also why not keeping up additional lane of possibility of if manifestation exists, what does this mean? How do you slowly do experiments, almost like scientific method, like to start to kind of incorporate it in your life without, jumping completely into this magical thinking of manifestation? How do you slowly start to pull it in and integrate both the metaphysical and the 3D in terms of how you go about the world? So that's a big part of my manifestation workshop is balancing both approaches so you can start to manifest, which I think is a really good footing for folks as they move into the 2026 year, starting to invoke new ideas, new things, and kind of create more space for it. I have very detailed curriculum. I'm very passionate about this class, so you're going to be very taken care of in terms of concepts and topics. You'll have access to the curriculum afterwards. I also have personalized worksheets, so you're going to be really supported on using those lunar cycles for manifestation based on your rising sign, and you can use these worksheets later as you go throughout the year. And so that's one thing that I have. I have spots both in my AM and PM class right now. So let me know if you want to. Actually, you will basically go to here later, my QR code or the link below in the description to sign up for the workshop, the manifestation workshop. I also have my 2026 calendar, and I actually already plotted out all of 2026. This is kind of a preview. And this calendar, no other astrologer that I'm aware of offers this. And what it does is it gives you a planetary path, an overview for each month on top of your natal chart. So this is going to be very, very helpful for you to kind of plan out your months and in your overall year. Like you can look at, for example, April is very interesting. It's over here. I haven't labeled this. Where we have this amazing pileup in Aries, and Aries is all about starting new things. And so this is the first and the only month in 2026 where all the planets are direct, and a lot of them are in Aries. So there's something about new beginnings, moving forward. And so this is a great time to either start projects or you're already going to be in the mindset to start projects. But this helps you with planning, especially if Aries is your money house or your health house or your work house or your family house. You can get a sense of, oh, I'm going to be thinking about this during this month and not this. And that can help you plan out the year, even where planets are in terms of travel, like, oh, this is a good time to travel, or this is a good time being with family. This will be really helpful. And August in particular, oh my gosh, that's going to be probably one of the loudest months for 2026 because we have Jupiter opposite Pluto, but then there's a beautiful sextile with Uranus and a sextile with Neptune and trines and trines. So there's something really transformative, a clear BC 80 moment at the collective, but also your individual life that's going to occur in August. So if you look at this particular chart or you have the calendar, you can see where it's happening. Is it happening in your work house, your health house, your friendship house, your partner house? So you can start to interpret that for yourself. And then I
August,
also offer readings.
yes,
Yeah,
if I
go
may.
ahead.
August,
Go ahead.
August is also, I know you probably can't see me. August is also a big deal next year for the solar eclipse in south of Europe.
Oh,
We talked
wow.
about it a little bit before the show, but
Yeah, I
yes,
didn't know that was in August.
I
Oh my gosh.
definitely want to, yes, around the, I would say the 12th, I'm not sure, but yes, I certainly want to do some sort of event next year around that
To
for
help
people
people
to
process it.
see
Yeah.
the eclipse. Sorry, I wanted to
No, no,
mention
you're totally
we're
fine.
yes,
I feel it's almost like you think back a year ago when Biden dropped out and Kamala, joined. That's like a timeline jump. Like, oh my God, now we're in this reality, we were in that reality. That's the vibe of August. So
yeah.
I think that's great, whether you do activities to process it with the eclipse, whether it's a retreat and other things, or just be aware August is going to be something where you're really having to leave old timelines and narratives and enter new timelines and narratives. And you want to be a willing participant with that. You don't want to block it in terms of those particular energies. And then I also offer astrology readings, and the one that I'm really passionate about is the 2025-2026 paradigm shift. And this is possibly going to be one of the top 5 or top 3 most important transits you'll experience in your lifetime in terms of a clear before and after. And that's the times we're in. We're very much in a before and after period where we're, jettisoning the old past, the old precedents and really stepping into the new. And so I would love to read for you, or if not me, find an astrologer in your life who can unpack this for you because we're leaving something and we're entering a whole new version of ourselves. And there becomes a clear narrative in terms of where it happens in your chart. So that is the infomercial bit. Now, today we're going to cover both November and December, but I'm going to focus more on November because there's a lot of key events happening there. And one thing I want to draw everyone's attention to is the Supreme Court November schedule. And so this is the overall schedule for oral arguments, but the one thing I want to draw everyone's attention to is November 5th, which is when the oral arguments will be about the tariff case, whether Trump was allowed to use the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to enact tariffs. And there's an astrological event happening on that day in particular. So when I go into November's energies, there are 3 key themes. The first theme that we're already experiencing, which is the veil is going to be really thin all of November. And we're also this last week of October. I'm curious, Nathe, have you already experienced the veil being thin right now, or like vivid dreams or psychic hits?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of that, but also I was with a client on a Zoom call, and her lights and my lights were flickering like nonstop, and there was absolutely no reason for that. And
With
I was
both of you? Your
yes,
lights
yes,
and wow.
yes, and I was delivering an important message at that time. You know, like someone was trying to understand why is this, why is that, and I was just trying to say, well, I'm seeing this, and at that time, like all lights went on, and I've never experienced this of that magnitude on a reading, and so that was quite interesting. Yeah.
Very much. It's like they were double underlining what you were
Yes.
saying. It's like
Yes.
really that
Yes.
this is important.
Yes.
Yeah, usually the veil is really thin for Halloween. That's what I've traditionally personally experienced and what I've been told by others. But this is an interesting thing where the astrological placements in November, but also in October, the veil will be thin this last week of October and most of November. And so folks who are newer to the spiritual world and you're new to this term of the veil will be thin, this is the month to experience it. And so this is great for pulling tarot, to book a reading with Nathe, because the veil will be thinner. It's easier to, receive information, but it's also good for manifestation because intuition or psychicness and manifestation are the same channel. You can receive and send both through that. So this is going to be a very interesting time with the veil being thin. Another thing to note in November is we have mostly a Mercury retrograde for
Yeah.
all of November. So there's going to be something interesting with communication. So this is kind of where Mercury starts, first part of November, and then it quickly retrogrades back. And so it starts a bit in Sag, and then it goes back in Scorpio. And so there's going to be something interesting with communication. It's so interesting also with the government shutdown. Like I hope they get it resolved before this
I
starts,
hope.
but maybe this might drag it on further. It's so there's something interesting about communication in November. And then we're starting an event at the in November that's going to last for the next 3 months, all the way into January, which is Jupiter and Saturn are going to trine each other. Saturn moved back into Pisces and right here. And then Jupiter is already moving forward into Cancer, but they're going to move into a position of trining. They're not going to trine in November. I believe they're going to trine in January, but there's something about longer term projects in your lives are going to start to see some breakthrough, some relief, some sort of light at the end of the tunnel. So if this is something about like paying off your credit cards or buying a home or looking for a partner or things that are more bigger and seismic, you might start to see some progress in the next 3 months around this with this beautiful aspect between Jupiter and Saturn. So that's November at a high level. When we go into November more deeply, I'm not going to talk about the pink, but these are just very positive days. I just want to say, I want to talk about the first, the second, and the third. And I think, given how long we've been on recording, I probably will focus on the first and the second more. But the first one, I'm curious too for you, Nath, to kind of pull cards on, which is this full moon in Taurus. And this week in particular, not just the 5th, but that whole week has some interesting events. So when you look at astrology, you look at a month to kind of get a sense of how to orient to it, you want to look at the full moon and new moon energies. And the full moon and new moon are like inputs, outputs, what you release, what you add in. And so the reference I give is like full moons are like going to the fridge and getting all the junk food or the expiring food out, or going to your pantry and saying, I don't like this anymore, I don't like this, or your clothing closet and going, I want to get rid of it. So it's like going to Salvation Army or going to the dumpster bin and just getting rid of things. That's full moon, release. And then the other part in a month is a new moon, which is adding new things in, going to the grocery store, say, oh, I'm going to have this protein shake as opposed to this other food. I'm going to have, I'm noticing in the grocery store, everything's infused with protein right now. So I just can't help to mention that. But I'm going to wear these type of clothes because this is the new me. There's something about the inputs with new moon. So with this full moon, there's something about releasing and letting things go. And this is in Taurus. And Taurus represents values. It represents the material world, but being steadfast, being reliable. It also represents finances. And on this particular day, we have beautiful sextiles and trines. So on this culmination, this full moon that happens in Taurus, we have this beautiful breakthrough energy that's also happening at the same time. And also on this day is the Supreme Court case, oral arguments about the tariff issue. And the day before is the election around, in
Oh, that's
particular,
right.
yes, on the 4th is the Prop 50 in California, Virginia, New Jersey's governor race, and also their positions within the state. and then Mandani's New York mayoral candidate race. So I'm curious, Nate, on the tariff issue, do you see them voting yes to uphold it, or they're going to strike it down? Because astrologically, it looks very auspicious that they will actually strike it down. My logical, cynical brain doesn't believe that. My logical, cynical brain believes the Supreme Court is in the pocket of Trump. But what are the cards telling you, or your intuitive hits?
I have read on that before, but I pulled some more cards today. I get the sense that it is kind of, it's not an all or nothing answer. I feel like there's within the list of tariffs, there's kind of a middle ground decision where some of them they might say in this particular context it's applicable, and those in this context it's not applicable. I just don't feel like this is an all or nothing. So let me just pull some cards. It's been
Yeah.
a while since I looked.
Yeah, and the energy's changed too. And one other thing, folks, Trump announced last week he's going to attend the oral arguments. And there has
Oh,
never been a sitting president who's attended an oral argument. I Googled for about 5 minutes just to double check. And so that's I've said this before. I feel that shows using Oz Perlman's, mentalist tactics, it shows that he's nervous, he's insecure, that he has to actually show up to kind of intimidate them. Because if he felt he had that in the bag, he wouldn't need to do that.
it's interesting the energies that I get. The Four of Wands, talks about you could see it as the court, but this is also a sense of stability. In other words, like they could hold the tariffs. But look, the Seven of Wands and the Knight of Swords, there's a fighting argument. There's almost like the arguments against the tariff have also been heard. And so I feel like the over energy, it's a fighting against the institution, fighting against the tariffs. And so, and with a lot of strength card came up, a lot of energy. So I feel kind of the same where there will be a decision, but this decision, it's kind of a give and take.
Hmm, interesting. Okay, so it might not be like there's winners and losers on both sides type of thing. It might
Because
not be clear.
and I'm not an expert, but I know that economically or legally or in international trade laws, not all tariffs are created equal.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. One
So,
other thing
yes,
to note, the US Senate yesterday voted to strike down the Brazil tariffs. So Trump had used that act to allow Brazil's tariffs to be imposed. And so the US Senate said no, and I think it's going to the House now. But that also it's like tipping up to the Supreme Court, like, hey, we're capable of voting yes or no on the tariffs. So that actually gave me hope that possibly it might actually be strike down, or it might not be completely in Trump's pocket.
they might say, the Congress should have voted on these for those, but not on those. The authority of the president for those holds, but not for those. I feel more like that.
Yeah, and you know what? This also matches because it's actually two cases. They kind of combine two
Ah,
cases. So
okay.
maybe what you're picking up on is they say, 50% of this case is okay, but not this. And then so
Yeah.
that makes sense in terms of the energies you're picking up. And so folks, this is something some recommendations just for your personal life, not just politics, like actions to take on the full moon of embodying more Taurus true energies or releasing things where you're too Taurus in your life in terms of this full moon. One other thing too, I'm curious for you, Nath, to pull on is this New York mayoral race that's happening. Do you feel Mandani will win, or do you feel it actually might be Como? Or what do the cards say?
I actually read on it a lot of times, and there
Yeah.
hasn't been a single time where I didn't see him winning.
Oh,
Mandani.
so you do see Mandani winning in the bag.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Did you see his speeches with AOC and Sanders over the weekend?
I didn't read the speech, but I know it was very powerful. Have you looked at his astrology?
I have. He actually has very similar actually placements to myself. He has a lot of Libra, Virgo, and Cancer placements. Those are like the dominant kind of themes in his chart, and very positive for money and physical resources. So I think he's going to really understand money really well, like how to not just for himself, but just the language of money and how to like move money, like budgets and manage things. That's very auspicious. But he's very emotionally connected with his
Gotcha.
Cancer placements. He's got like double Cancer placements, double Libra placements, and double Virgo placements with
I
that.
had the Ace of Cups, so
Oh,
that's
wow, very
the
much.
Cancer side. But you see him, you picture him winning?
I battle between my logical
Ah,
part and my woo-woo part. My logical part kind of hijacks. I'm a Capricorn moon and just really wants to make sure he's safe, like that someone doesn't do something nefarious, um, whether it's the oligarchs or whether some crazy eye, person. So I just want to, yeah, send him the white light of protection as he kind of moves to election day. So, okay, that's very auspicious in terms of what you're able to. That's going to really change New York. It's almost like this Pluto and Aquarius, this new era that will kind of be invoked with that. Um, the other thing I want to mention when it comes to November's astrology is the new moon in Scorpio. That will occur 2 weeks later, and some interesting astrological events happen, the day before and the day after. Is with this new moon in Scorpio, there is a focus on um, personal power. There's something about knowing where the darkness is, where things are, and not like shying away from the darkness, but being able to acknowledge it. So there's something with this particular new moon where, at a collective level, but also individually, you're going to kind of come back on more into your own power, where your power is, whether it's your manifestation power, whether it's your own intuition, but there's some sort of returning home to this particular sense of where you can control things, where you can influence things. And it's also interesting because we also have Mercury opposite Uranus at the same time. So there's something about thinking about things differently, approaching things differently. So there's something really special about this new moon of a birth of a new you. And it's not just a new you of like your own concept, there's an energetic spiritual rebirth of you at this one. So this is something to watch out for. And then one thing that will occur a couple days later. So this week is very spiritual, very, the veil is very thin, very emotional. But we have one of the most amazing days of the month, which is on the 22nd, where we have this beautiful trine between Mercury, Saturn, and Jupiter. And, given where everything else is also in the chart, this is going to be a great time to have creative breakthroughs. If you're working on a project, working on maybe another deck of Oracle cards after the wheel cards, you might have some inventive ideas. So if you're brainstorming on a script for a play or a new business idea, this is a great day to do that, to kind of think on it because the veil is thin. And in that same channel as manifestation, as intuition, is also the imagination. So there's something about your intuition, that vivid world where the ideas will sort of come in and pour in. Um, and then moving into December, one thing I want to point out again is the Supreme Court case, because that's a big part of our, part politics, part spiritual world on YouTube, is we have, this is the Supreme Court case scheduled for December, but we have two cases that I want to draw your attention to. One on December 8th is a particular case around whether Trump can remove an FTC person.
mm,
And so this is not the Lisa Cook case.
okay.
That case is actually on the docket for January at the Supreme Court for oral arguments. But whatever happens here will sort of tip the hand a bit about what will happen with Lisa Cook. And then on the 9th, the next day, is another case that's almost like Citizens United to the 10th power. So we're going to see if they pass it or not. Are we going to get in a more worse predicament than Citizens United, where they can even spend more money, or if it's going to be voted down? So that'll be something to folks to be aware of if we're going to have more of this like oligarchy energy where they can kind of influence in different ways. But moving into December, December has a very interesting vibe where there's kind of two parts. The first half of December, I would say there's clarity building. We have a retrograde of Mercury for most of November. And so for the first part of December, we're getting Mercury direct. And at the same time, we're also having Neptune going direct. So Neptune is in the last stage of Pisces, 29th degree, and then it's going to basically go direct and start to move forward. So there's something about clarity where we kind of like the fog dissipates in your life, the first part of December, and you can start to see things clearly. So that's the first, vibe. The second part of December is very interesting, where Mars kind of squares Saturn, but also Mars starts moving into Capricorn of getting things done. Like, let's kind of knock things out of our list. And you have this action bias that's starting to build. And then at the same time, we have Jupiter and Saturn loosely trining. So there's something where, you know, sometimes when people enter January, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's already the new year already. I don't think we're going to have that vibe this year. It's going to be almost like in the middle of December, sorry, the middle of December, you're almost going to be wanting to be in 2026 already. And it's almost as if 2026 is already creeping in
Mm,
to December, and you're already starting to experience and start to activate 2026 in the middle of December. So there's something about you might already be planning for 2026 in December. I mean, I've been working on these calendars, and so my part of my brain is already in 2026.
yeah,
But I wouldn't be surprised if the collective, everyone is starting to feel like I'm already in 2026 in December and wanting to plan things, whether it's a personal calendar or a business plan, or starting to book out vacations for 2026. There's something about it's already starting to creep in. And also 2025 was a 9 year. And so
yeah,
there's something about wrap ups and reflections and kind of, manage that, letting things go. And then 2026 will be a 1 year of new beginnings and new starts. And so that makes kind of sense that it already starts to creep in a bit with
yeah,
the second half of December. So I won't go into the full moon and new moon, but I will say that they are in Gemini and in Sag. So folks can feel free to pause the video and take a photo of this so they can kind of read the description. But we end December with this full moon in Gemini and this new moon in Sag, which is about information, about how we process our beliefs, whether we get information from other people. So there's something about what we believe reality to be, or what we believe things to be possible, that's kind of priming us for 2026, of what is our concept of ourself, what's our concept of the world, what's our concept of what's possible. And one quote I want to give everyone just to help them understand the mindset of December, but also put them in the right footing for 2026, is this quote by Robert Schuller is, what great thing would you attempt if you could not fail? And that is the vibe of December, of like thinking bigger, envisioning bigger, letting go of beliefs, but also seeing other things that are possible. So something very dreamy that I would say with this full moon and new moon in December. I'm curious, Nate, when you feel into the energies of December, or when you've had personal readings for people who say the rest of the year, what are you feeling?
It's interesting. I think it aligns with what you were saying, that December feels like a very, very short month, and everything's happening in January. And so
Mhm.
I feel like I agree with the energy of a wrap-up month. Um, I I feel like the energies are shifting into 2026 quite a bit. Like 2026 doesn't feel at all like 2025 at all. I feel like we are and when I've been pulling some cards, one of the cards that just keeps coming for 2026 is the Death card, which is,
Wow.
of course, not literally, but a lot of
Mhm.
endings and new beginnings that aligns with the year nine and the year one. And the Death card just tells me that it's endings and beginnings. And so December is an ending of an ending year. And
Yeah.
January is a beginning of a beginning year. So you imagine the contrast. Yeah.
Yeah, you put it perfectly put. It's like the end of an end and the beginning of a beginning. It's like a
Yes.
clear before and after that's starting to emerge. And a lot of other astrologers have seen 2026 being a really loud year, like unlike any other. And from what I've seen when I've done personal readings and felt into those energies, it really feels 2026 will be one of the most transformative years
Formative. I
in a
agree.
very long time. I would say probably one of the loudest years, few years previous and few years after. Like it feels like a real kind of peak period that will possibly occur. And I think one thing that can be helpful is either booking a session with you, Nate, so they can kind of pull cards for every month and kind of plan things out. But also just, yeah, like, start planning things out, like plan every month out and just see where you want to, spend your time because there's something about the energies of it that are just so transformative. Like you kind of
Yes,
need to kind of wet your palate then.
absolutely. I've been working on those predictions, and strangely enough, like the death card kept coming, the tower a couple times, very few, temperance or
Oh,
soft cards. And
mhm.
so it I could see it like being very changing, very transformative. I don't think we need to be afraid of that, but
No, it's just
be
change.
aware
Yeah.
of the transformation that's really happening on top of the nine becoming one. So a whole
Mhm.
cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also, folks, you even look at your personal year because you might be entering
Yes.
a 1 year yourself, which is like a double one in terms of those particular energies for 2026. So yeah, that's kind of the astrology point of view that I would have for today's. November is the month to watch. In particular, this first week, we're going to see both the election day results as well as the tariff issue. And so there could be something, it's interesting too, because Taurus does rule money. And one thing to note is if the tariffs often with these oral arguments, they sort of tip their hand in terms of how they're going to vote. And so there might be a bit of a stock market response
Mhm.
afterwards, whether it's positive or negative in
Right,
terms of
right.
that
That's a good
particular.
call. Yeah. I
Yeah.
also want to mention on 2026, in Chinese astrology, it's the year of the horse. And so there's movement attached to that energy.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
interesting. So, wow. I love that we have so many different divination tactics like we can just
Yeah.
use to kind of. So, folks, yeah, that's something that to keep in mind of December is really helping you prepare for 2026, and your brain is already going to start to be in 2026 by the middle of December. So I think that's it. What? Oh, actually, one other question. You know what? It's okay. I was going to ask about the shutdown, but we've already asked so many questions about the shutdown. I will say astrologically, what it looks like is the shutdown. There's some more positive aspects the third week of November for the shutdown of being resolved, that it looks like it might not be resolved for the next few weeks. It could possibly be resolved before the retrograde or this period, the second. So I want to just remind folks that could be something with what the astrology is saying in terms of the shutdown. I didn't expect them to actually use the snap as a chess piece with that. So that's going to be
I mean,
something unprecedented.
this shutdown, I feel like I've read on it a couple times. I was wrong more than a couple times. I don't think I was the only person wrong on it. It feels like it just threw everyone off. Like that length of a shutdown, I don't think anyone has really predicted that. Um,
Into a busy travel season, like that's just
it just threw a lot of us off. And
yeah.
we have to have the humility just to kind of look back and realize like it was just not expected. Like
Yeah,
there was
for
no
us to predict it.
sign to predict. Like it's just. I think it's always super interesting when something like that happens. We're like, "Oh, why? Like, why was it not visible?
Yeah, why do
Why
we all kind of seem
energy
miss?
shifted?" And yeah, I think I really enjoy kind of looking back, but I have not really found a really good explanation of why this energy didn't show up in monthly readings or things like that. It's
Yeah.
just strange.
A part of that though too is I noticed that a lot of the Democratic governors have already had contingency funds for SNAP. And it seems a lot of Republican states are not having contingency plans for SNAP. So, in a weird way, I wonder, this is not proven, I wonder if the Democratic governors sort of got together and understood Congress might do this as a chess piece and then they'll be supported because in a weird way the Democratic governors look like heroes right now. They can like come in and they're like redirect. I think Tim Walz in Minnesota redirected funds. That's happening. Gavin Newsom redirected funds, and so a lot of Democratic governor states are not experiencing the full brunt of the SNAP shortage So the food is coming in, but one thing that we also need to be mindful of is a lot more people are needing SNAP because of the government shutdowns.
Oh,
And
I think
so,
it's like 42 million Americans.
yeah, 42.
And another statistic is 30% of them are children.
I know. I know.
So
And then
it's,
veterans is a percentage of it
yes,
too,
of
which is
course.
like,
I mean, it's by definition people who need it the most.
yeah.
Um, so it is really cruel. But
And
are we
you know,
surprised? Are we surprised?
it's interesting because both Thanksgiving we have a lot of emotional
Yeah.
attachment to being fed and Thanksgiving and then the travel season. I believe Linda mentioned on her shows that the government shutdown last time was ended because of its impact on travel, like the air controllers and the pilots.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we're entering our busiest travel season with this. I just didn't, it's kind of like they're both playing a game of chicken to see how far before the other one
Playing
kind
with
of,
fires, Ness, playing with fire, playing with safety.
yeah. Yeah, it's
Yes.
very, very interesting. But I mean, astrologically, it looks like, that they would resolve it before Thanksgiving, possibly very soon before this retrograde, before November 9th, or that last week, which is like the 17th to the 21st. There's something really emotionally heart-centered
Hopefully sooner.
about that week.
Hopefully
Yeah,
sooner. Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank
Ness,
you,
thank you
Nate, for having
for
me
having.
here. Yeah.
It's always fun, and I certainly hope that you will be back, even though you talked about
Yeah,
this.
no, I really enjoy this. Isn't I really enjoy
Yeah,
coming down here and talking with you. Sometimes we talk so much before we hit record. We're like, oh, we should be we need to hit record sooner. Yeah, and I really want to help support people in their 2026 energies because there's something about 2026 is not about it's a 1 year, but it's not about the past. It's not about precedent. It's really about inventing the new and
sure.
both manifestation workshops or manifesting. There's something about where are the new things that are going to be invoked that I want to, help folks with. And I'm personally excited about 2026. I think we're going to enter a whole new era of ourselves, like a whole new
Paradigm.
version of what reality could be. And I think that's a nice silver lining with Trump. I don't want to give him too much praise, but he is role modeling to us for us not to rely on the past, not to rely on precedent,
Mm.
but just to do things new for the first time. And I hope everyone takes note of that and kind of invokes that in their life. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ness, and thanks everyone for watching the show. We appreciate, your subscribing, liking, forwarding to your friend, and commenting. It really means a lot to us. Thank you so very much, and see you next month.
Thank you.